China is moving to strengthen its alliance as a counterweight to Donald Trump's trade war. President Xi Jinping says he's ready to join hands with Latin American countries to block protectionism a day after China and the U.S. agreed to a 90-day truce in their tariff stalemate. The realities of Mr. Trump's global trade offensive overshadowed an initial burst of optimism over the China-U.S. deal among investors, as rallies in stocks and oil prices faded. Concordia University's Dr. Moshe Lander joined us for more on the ongoing trade war and the 90-day truce between the U.S. and China.
The 90-day truce is better than no truce at all, but I think it's all a matter of perspective. If you're comparing it to where we were 6 months ago, there were no tariffs. So even this 90-day truce still means that there are tariffs in place, and that's worse than where we were, but it's better than where we were a week ago. So I think that this is going to save the Chinese and American economies from an economic slowdown, whether that's a recession or whether that's just slower than normal growth. But for anybody who thinks that this is going to return things to the way they were, they're sadly mistaken. And all it continues to do is distort trade patterns from what they were, what they should be. And of course, the other part of it, too, is that it's all in this name of Trump seeing trade as a zero-sum game. So it's not a free trade agreement. It's not anything that's going to allow consumers and businesses to choose what they want to do with their money and with their investments. And so in that sense, it's still very, very dangerous. I think that consumers and businesses feel a little more confident today than they did last week. But that's not to say that they should feel overwhelmingly confident that this is going to come back in 90 days, or that it's going to come back more aggressively, or that there's going to have to be some grand bargain to eliminate this extra level of uncertainty that while there's no tariffs right now, or at least no 145% tariffs, that's not to say that they could come back. We've seen Trump before do a 180 and then double down when he realizes that there's trouble.
Dr. Lander also unpacked if the truce will help delay or postpone a potential tariff-related recession in the U.S.
So, I think the thing with the recession is that it's such a technical definition, 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP, that I don't know if it necessarily saves them from a recession, but it's not going to save them from a slowdown. Let's put it in perspective. Let's say that the Chinese economy is growing at about 5-6% per year, and they slow down as a result 3 percentage points to 2 or 3%. If the US economy is growing at 2% a year and they slow down 2 to 3 percentage points per year, that's now flat to negative growth. So are we going to say that the US is having a recession, but China avoided one? They both experienced the same economic slowdown. So I think that's much more important is what could you have been growing at and what are you growing at now? It's less than you would have been in the absence of these tariffs. So that to me is the real damage, whether it meets the NBER technical definition of the 2 declining quarters of GDP. It's almost irrelevant. When the job losses mount, when consumers are spending less, when businesses are canceling major investment projects because of the uncertainty, that's really all that matters from my standpoint. And I think that that's really the damaging part of the story.
Lastly, Dr. Lander touched on how large of a trading partner China is with the U.S., and if there is a scenario where either of them could function economically without the other.
They are completely codependent. And so we could say that this is the loveless marriage. They don't like each other. They really would prefer to be away from each other, but they can't go it alone. Don't forget that the flip side of the trade story is the financial part of the story, and they do go hand in hand. If the US has a trade deficit with China, which they do, that also means that China will own a tremendous amount of American assets, the headline being US government bonds. So in effect, for the US government to finance its huge debt, it's China that's paying for it. And so if the US wants to try and undo its trade deficit with China, it's also going to have to undo its debt to China. And so you can imagine that the US president would say, well, I want to undo that debt. Fine. Who else is going to take it on? Which investor is going to step up and say, I'm willing to buy up $1 trillion worth of your bonds and help finance your consistent overspending? The US likes the idea of its low taxes. That's great, but you're going to have to borrow then from the rest of the world. And I don't know that there's a lot of countries with the size and heft that are out there to be able to do that. Maybe the reason he's in the Middle East right now is beyond accepting a free jet from Qatar is that he's looking to say, hey, you have a lot of money. Maybe I'd rather be codependent with you. The flip side of it as well is from China's standpoint, the US is a major market for its exports. but it also is a vehicle for all of that Chinese saving to find a safe harbor for its investment opportunities. And so where China could go around the world and invest in other countries, the other countries are seen to be riskier than the US, at least traditionally. And so if you want to be the exporter to the world, you also need a place to park your money. So it would be really difficult for them to unwind from each other, and it would be almost impossible for them to find somebody else to take their place. Remember that the two of them combined make up, give or take, around 40% of the global economy. There's just not enough countries out there with enough size to make up for that.